Hey folks, welcome back. So to start off this week, we are again working on a few little projects up here in the loft of the Millhouse. And the first thing I want to do is we brought this vise out here last week, and the only problem is that it's not hooked down to the bench. So if you're trying to put something in there and kind of bend it or something like that, it doesn't work very well. So we're gonna bolt this thing down so that it's a little bit more usable. Alright, well, we almost finished this off. This one over here is actually right over top of this 2x4 that's underneath our workbench there. So I actually need to get a long 1/2-inch bolt to go all the way through that. I think I've got some, just not out here. But it is held down enough that I can do pretty much whatever I want on here and not have to worry about ripping it off from the workbench. So now we are gonna try doing a little bit of work on this thing right here. I brought out, I think, the last few things that I need to get this wired up the rest of the way. I do still need to pick up a pulley belt to hook our motor up to our table saw here, but other than that, I think I've got everything to get this thing up and running. Alright, well, we got that working. I mean, like I said, I still got to get that belt, but once we do that, we should have a working table saw. I also need to get a cover plate for the switch to kind of cover that up a little bit, make it a little bit safer. Don't get a finger in there and get shocked or something like that. But, you know, at least it works, right? And it's spinning in the right direction on the first try. Had a 50-50 chance on that, and I got lucky. Now, last week, before we started having issues with the loader and the fuel pump and the fuse and all that kind of good stuff, we were working on this hay wagon running gear, which eventually we were going to turn into a mobile chicken coop, or the Egg Wagon. And what I was attempting to do is to see how much we might be able to stretch this out, because essentially what's going to be on here is just going to be a big box, and it's not going to be all that heavy, which I think means that we could probably stretch this out a little bit if we have enough length of tube, of this inner tube inside of this end piece down here. We might be able to stretch it out and get a little bit more length out of it, a little bit bigger coop, and of course then we can hold a few more chickens in it. And so I was using the loader to kind of help pick some stuff up to make it easier to pull stuff apart and whatnot, and that's when we started having issues, so we didn't finish this. But over the weekend, my dad came out here and he was going to do something with the loader, I don't know what, and he said it wouldn't start. Now, I just went over and looked at it, and it looks like the battery is low. On the display it says it's reading about around 10 volts, and it should be up like 12 or 14, so I'm not quite sure what the deal is with that, but we are going to take the generator over there and the charger and see if we can't get this thing started. I'm having a little bit of deja vu from last week. Alright, well, as I had suspected, this other side, the inner pipe did not go in all the way like it did on the front side. So that one is just going to be where it is. We aren't going to try stretching that one out any further. Now, as you can hear, I've left the loader running because that way, just in case there is something funky with the battery, we don't have to restart it. And at the moment, it's running through this cycle that is supposed to, I think, clean some filter or something. And so the RPMs are up higher than idle. So that's why we're standing a little ways away from that. And then it just cuts down to the idle as I'm saying it. So I'm gonna grab the grinder real quick and smooth up that intersection just as far as it needs to slide back in. Hopefully that'll make it a bit easier to put back together. We'll drop the pin back in it and just call it good for now. Alrighty, so to start today off, I brought out a really long 1/2-inch bolt, so we are going to put in our last bolt for our bench vise over here. Okay, so with that done, this morning I stopped by the store, and as you recall, this is the pulley belt that came off from our saw, and it's not exactly as pliable as it should be, so I picked up a new one, and this one's in a lot better shape. So let's see if we can't get this thing on our saw. Alright, now, before we can make any test cuts with our new table saw to make sure that it actually works, we gotta do one more things. Unless I forgot, then it'll be 3 more or 4 more one more things. But the first one more thing is I think it's our fence. One of the holes that a bolt goes into to tighten it down in place is stripped out. So the original size was it was a 1/4 inch little bolt that screwed into it. So we are just gonna step that up to a 5/16. We'll drill it out, then we'll run a 5/16 tap through it. It's a fairly short hole, so I think you can get these little inserts that they thread in at one size, and then it's the same size as what you had inside of this thing. But I think those are more for deeper holes, and I don't have any of them on hand, so we're just gonna take this method, and I think it'll work just fine. Okay, well, our fence is fixed, and then in order to hook the fence on, we had to shorten down this little bar that runs across the front here because, again, I think that was something that had been made custom by my, I guess, like great-grandfather or something, so that it would have that extended table, which I'm very sure that was not original to it, so he made like his own little bar to run across. So we cut that short, so that's only as long or as wide as the table is. That was our second one more thing. So I think we're ready to give this thing a go and see if it'll work. Alright, so I picked up some new fuses when I picked up the belt for the table saw. So we still need to replace one of them in here because I swapped out a fuse that was to the fuel pump with one that went to, I think, the lights or something. So we need to put a new one in there, I think, for the lights. So I'm gonna pop one in right there. And now I think we are complete again. Okay, so now we are gonna do some work over here on the old Massey Ferguson. And we need a new fuel filter on there. And I also need to put a new fuel shutoff on there because the old one was getting kind of a little loose and it was leaking a little bit around there. So I picked up that at the same time as I got the fuse and the belt for the table saw. So we're going to go ahead and put that on there now, so hopefully we can get this thing back up and running. Alright, she is back up and running. I had to pull off the carburetor and it had some gunk in there, so I had to clean that up. And once I did that, fired right up. The reason it was running just a tad bit rough at the beginning is might have had something to do with the fact that I forgot to put the drain plug for the carburetor bowl back in. So it was causing some minor fuel issues there, but once I caught on to that and put that back in, that seems to be running just fine now.